Well, we're back in a rift zone, and we talked about rifting, must have been after our first excursion, when we looked at how those big dikes, those big dark bands that cut across the landscape, how they form, and they're the passageways, the channels for molten rock to make their way to the surface where it feeds a volcano. So initially to mine silver, but that didn't last very long, wasn't really there in economic quantities. What they were after was the cryolite. And of course, the locals had known about this mineral long before the Danish geologists ever arrived here. And they called it the ice that never melts. And that's a really good description. It's a much better name because it does have similarities to ice. It forms very clear minerals that you can see right through, in the same way that you can see right through ice when it's thin and it's transparent and there's no air trapped within it, making it look white. It looks transparent, a bit like the cryolite. And then some forms of cryolite can look milky white, like this. The same way that icebergs can look white if they've got a lot of air trapped in them. It's the air trapped within them that makes them look white. And it's the internal crystal shapes inside here, the planes are crystal planes, which provide a discontinuity inside your crystal and make it look white. So sometimes it can be clear and sometimes it can be white. If you take one of these white crystals and put it in the water, it's going to be pretty obvious. You'll see it because it's white. But if you take one of these clear ones and put it in the water, it's going to be a lot harder to see because it has the same refractive index as water. In other words, it bends the light the same amount as what water does. So you're familiar with this. If you're looking at something in the water and you put your hand in to try and pick it up, it's in a different place to what you think it is because the water bends slightly, the light bends slightly as it moves from the air into the water. That's the refraction. And so if you put something in it which has a different refractive index, you can see it in the water. Sometimes it distorts the shape a little bit. But if you have something with the same refractive index, then it's going to be very hard to see. And that's a property of this transparent cryolite, and very similar to the ice that the locals would have been used to, and they named it the ice that never melts. So to make aluminium, you normally start off with a rock called bauxite, which is a rock which has been largely weathered just by natural geological processes. So it's already starting to break down. You take that and then you have to extract the aluminium, which is still attached to the oxygen in this rock. And that requires a huge amount of energy. You have to heat it up to massive temperatures. And just by adding a little bit of cryolite, you can lower the amount of temperature that you need to heat it to extract the aluminium. You increase the conductivity, it's extracted by electrolysis, and it also helps purify the aluminium. So very useful for making aluminium extraction a lot more efficient.
In this area, funny enough, ivittuut, the naming of the region is kind of after its vegetation, known as like the grassy area. So funny enough, we found our herbivores, the larger ones, this morning, straight out of the gate. The area we're in this part of Greenland, although there are native reindeer or caribou in other parts of Greenland, this area in the south, the reindeer were hunted out here by the end of the 1800s. And so the reindeer we saw today had been, again, introduced from Norway and are part of those that were reintroduced to the area. So there's both those that were introduced in the southern area and those that were never extirpated from the area up the west side. So